make a huge bubble like this one?
No, for the last time, Ian, the science of soap bubbles is in a later programme.
Oh.
Stand by for takeoff. Last time we asked you how this works. Why does this tiny propeller spin round and round? Well, cut into this piece of wood is a series of notches, and as I rub them with this other stick, the propeller spins without an elastic band in sight. The rubbing action causes vibrations to be set up along the length of the stick as well as across it. But the rate or frequency of the vibrations, which go along the length of the stick, is different from the vibrations across. And when those various vibrations are added up, the total effect is an oval or an elliptical vibration. Now, this elliptical vibration itself rotates, and when it connects up with the propeller, it forces it to spin in the same direction. Now, if I can get some good vibrations going on the other side of the notches, the propeller will spin the other way.
This programme is about all kinds of good vibrations and, in a sense, is about time. Carol recently took a little time out in order to investigate time itself, but first she was sidetracked into opening a new hands-on science exhibition in Birmingham.
Carol, would you please lay this keystone?
I certainly will.
Light on Science open.
Thank you. I hope my civil engineering degree will help me with this. Lay that in, kick away the support. Here goes, folks. Ta-da! For me, the great beauty and excitement of science is when you can play with it and you can do it. You can actually do science. And hopefully, everybody who comes here will be able to discover something about the way in which the world works and spread a little light on science. So I now really have the greatest of pleasure in declaring the Light on Science Gallery open.
Light on science really became hands-on science when the first party of school children arrived. Here, there are no hidden electronics. Nothing happens in black boxes. Hands-on means things have to be pushed, pulled, or twisted before the experiments will reveal their secrets.
The air's going through, and we're both bouncing together.
Exhibits such as these all have to be specially made, and visitors can see what's involved because the workshops have been made part of the gallery. After all, why hide away the people who've built the exhibition and the tools they've used? Roll up, all the fun of the fair! But don't be deceived into thinking a hands-on science gallery is nothing more than an amusement arcade. You can find out some fascinating things about the way the world works. Most people have played with a toy gyroscope, but make one the size of a bicycle wheel and you can really do something with it. Sit on a pivoted seat and hold the spinning gyro wheel. Try to alter the position of your arms and you'll really feel the effect as you draw the energy from the gyro and make your seat go round. This gyro behaves like a gyro compass on a ship. However enthusiastically the children turn the supporting table, the position of the gyro remains the same, just like a compass.
From time to time on Take Nobody's Word for It, we try to answer some of the more important questions in life, like how long is a piece of string? How can you find the sex of a chicken before it's hatched? Or why does the sun rise and set? Well, a pendulum may not be the most reliable way to sex an egg, but you can certainly use one to find out why the sun rises. Is it caused by the Earth rotating, or is the Earth stationary with the sun moving around it, just like the moon? Well, until the mid-19th century, nobody knew for certain. But here in Birmingham, you can discover the answer for yourselves by doing an experiment which might interest members of the Flat Earth Society. A pendulum's the sort of thing you'd expect to find in a grandfather clock, swinging to and fro to keep the time. Well, this pendulum's a bit too big for that. It's nearly 30 feet long and it swings from a delicate pivot up near the ceiling. Although there's no clock, in a strange sort of way, it still keeps the time. You need a bit of patience for this experiment. Fix the ball to this electromagnet, switch off the current, and the pendulum starts to swing. Now, something unexpected happens. Very slowly, the pendulum changes the direction of its swing. It's actually too slow to see, but if you come back in about an hour's time, you'll find that it seems to have turned through quite an angle. Well, there's no wind to blow the pendulum off its course, so what made it change? Is it possible that the pendulum swing stayed the same while the Earth turned underneath it? Just like a ship's gyroscopic compass points in a fixed direction, no matter which way the ship turns. Confused? You don't have to take my word for it. Here's a smaller version of the same experiment. I'll start the pendulum swinging along this line. Now you have to imagine that I'm at the North Pole and this plate represents the Earth. Now I can make my Earth revolve just by turning the plate. The pendulum keeps on swinging, but it looks as though its direction of swing has changed. Now I know all I've done is revolve the plate. And just like in the larger experiment, I've done nothing at all to alter the swing of the pendulum. So this simple experiment proves that the Earth revolves, and it also answers the question, what makes the sun rise? Of course, it also proves that not even Birmingham is at the centre of the universe.
They're certainly not my feet, neither are they Carol's. They belong to a physicist, Gillian Spivey. Now, Gillian, if you'll stop tapping for a minute and tell me about your rather unusual career.
Well, I'd always wanted to be a dancer ever since I was very small, and I began having dancing lessons at the age of 5.
Yes.
But I was always very interested in science at school, and eventually that led me to take a degree in physics. But I was always studying for the dancing at the same time, and eventually, having graduated, I decided then that I'd become a professional dancer. So I did.
What did your professor say about that?
Well, he was quite bemused about that.
Well, that's how professors are. Tell me about the science of tap dancing.
Well, if I can just show you this. It's a basic tap shoe. It's got a toe tap here and a heel tap. And then, if I can just hang on to me for a minute, Ian. These are jingle taps, which I'm wearing, and they're another toe tap, which is loosely screwed onto the other toe tap, and they create a sort of vibrational sound.
I see.
Makes me sound like a really good tap dancer.
Do they all have that?
No, just me.
Well, I suppose the most important thing for a dancer is balance.
Yeah, well, a good example of balance is a back bend, so if I can just show you that.
Yes. Golly.
Now, that's all to do with the centre of gravity.
I see.
And the whole weight of your body acts through the centre of gravity, which is here,
Yes.
right here in the middle.
Yes.
And it's over your feet so that you're totally balanced. But
Yes.
if I break down a back bend, for example, in a back bend, if I extend
Yes.
my leg to the front, I need a counteracting movement at the back.
So that the centre of gravity stays...
That's right.
In the middle.
Now, if you come round the back and just hold me for a minute. As I lean back in the back bend, again, my centre of gravity is disturbed, so unless you can help me, I'm going to fall over.
You drop me on the floor.
Yes.
Well, now, I suppose turns are absolutely crucial for an interesting dance, aren't they?
Well, a good example is a turning leap, so if I show you a couple of those. Now, if we look at the video in slow motion, as I leave the floor, I exert a pressure on it.
Yes.
And that force will enable me to spin. But I don't actually spin till I reach the maximum height. And then as I recontact the floor again, I'll extend my arms and re-establish my centre of gravity.
Now, when we watch ballet dancers and perhaps more ice skaters, and they're doing a pirouette, they seem to be able to change their speed of rotation.
Well, I can show you how we do that. That's basically imagining that you're a large spinning top with lots
Yes.
and lots of spinning
Yes.
energy, and you bring all that energy in. It's still there, but it's very much more concentrated. And in a sense, you're a much smaller and thinner spinning top,
Yes.
but you increase your speed that way.
I see. Simple, really.
Yes.
What about giving me a tap dancing
All right, then
lesson?
let's have a go. If you do forward, back, hop, change, forward, back, hop, change. You've got this.
Pretty tricky
Change.
stuff.
Time flies, or at least it would do if I were at the end of a pendulum. In the 16th century, Galileo discovered that the swing time just depends on the length of the string, and pendulums have been used to regulate clocks in this way for hundreds of years. But if I make a pendulum slightly more complicated, all sorts of strange things start to happen. This pendulum is connected to a second string, which is fixed at both ends to a pole of wood. And the bob is made from, wait for it, a washing up liquid bottle which has been cleaned and dried and filled with salt. Now all I have to do is pull it to one side, remove the top and let it swing. Unlike the simple pendulum, this swings in 2 dimensions and it traces out a path which is oval or elliptical. But the ellipse itself changes direction. It rotates. The 2 supporting strings are of slightly different length, and together with this string, they try to make the pendulum swing at different rates and pull it in different directions. And it's a revolving elliptical vibration like this which also makes the propeller go round and round. How time flies.
If time really did fly, perhaps we'd measure it in light years. But a light year is really a measure of distance, how far light travels in a year. Although in astronomy, time and space can't really be separated. We've been to see somebody whose hobby is light years ahead of anything. Or should it be light years behind?
Some people are quite content to keep geese and goats at the bottom of their gardens, but not John Smith. He keeps a giant radio telescope. John's telescope is homemade, and it's operated from this little shed. John's interest goes back to the early days of radio astronomy. Since 1956, he's built many radio telescope aerials, but this dish is the most impressive.
I built this dish about 21 years ago with a friend of mine. The whole dish weighs about 2 tons. It's 30 feet in diameter. The incoming radio waves come down and are bounced off the chicken wire mesh and reflected back up to the aerials at the top. From the aerial, the signals go to the box at the top of the mast, where they are amplified and then sent by cable back to the shed. The dish itself can rotate horizontally and be moved vertically. The horizontal movement is by means of 2 car starter motors through washing plant gearboxes. The vertical motion is by means of a lorry dynamo driving through a gearbox, which in turn drives a rigging screw, which then pushes the dish up by scaffold tubes.
Radio astronomy can be done in the daytime. John's dish picks up signals from the sun.
The signal coming from the dish comes in here to these amplifiers here, which magnify the signal by a factor of 100 million before they are sent to the pen recorder over here or to the computer down at the other end of the shed for analysis.
It may not sound much like Radio 1, but this hissing and clicking noise is the radio signal from the sun. Some of the radio waves are produced from holes in the sun's surface called sunspots, and these radio signals change as the sunspots develop. By using this homemade optical telescope, John can look at the sunspots from the comfort of his shed and then compare them with the radio signals.
So the light comes down through this tube here. I'll now move the mirror outside to the correct position. And when the light comes through the tube, I can adjust this mirror to bring the light onto these lenses here and project an image of the sun onto this screen here at a larger scale so that it can make measurements of the sizes of the spots. This dot here represents the Earth to the same scale.
The sun isn't the only object in the sky which produces radio waves.
Down here, we have signals that came from the Crab Nebula during the night from a distance of 4,100 light years.
Such weak signals need an even bigger dish than this one to detect them properly. However, there is a way round the problem. At the far end of this field, John has built another aerial. When he connects both aerials together, they act like one huge telescope. This aerial is much simpler than the dish, but it serves its purpose very well. Such arrangements of aerials allow radio astronomers to see almost to the edge of the universe, much further than normal optical telescopes. Radio astronomy is a bit like looking back in time. Although radio waves travel at the speed of light, the distances involved are vast. These particular signals started their journey more than 10,000 years ago, so it's hardly surprising they're very weak.
If I could point my aerial at the Crab Nebula continuously and take the energy that it collected, after 500,000 million years, I have enough energy to brew a cup of tea.